So hello guys, and welcome to another game on Chessup. Today we are going to play another game. We need to connect first. Seems like my sons were hacking onto a chessboard, so they may have played a couple of games on my account. We are playing black pieces, and the idea is going to be playing c5 today, as we have so far 3 games in Phillidor and 1 game in Sicilian. And this actually looks a bit more like a Borden, where white plays bishop c4. We are going to play e6 against this. And again, lots of players know how to play with Borden. They want to keep the bishop on the long diagonal, so quite often they play a3 straight away. So as you have noticed, if you were here previously, that right now I'm using a different microphone. I bought the DJI, so hopefully there will be no more sound issues, as the previous videos were recorded with the Pocophone itself. So white is playing queen f3, which doesn't make sense to try and attack the weak f7 pawn, because there's simply no way to actually use that square. I can see also that c3 oftentimes leads into a big mistake. If white plays knight to e2, then oftentimes this bishop gets trapped. So I believe we might be in for a very short game if indeed the same mistake is going to be played, which is for white to play knight e2. I have seen on this level this mistake way too many times. On the other hand, a queen c7 is probably not the best way to punish this type of mistake, because if now knight e2 happens, knight e5, queen g3 is going to be a good answer to such move, and I'm actually pinning my own knight, so that's definitely not what I wanted to be playing. So queen c7 is not a good reaction to this. I should have played bishop e7 instead, because now knight e2 works. Well, partially works, because d4 doesn't work for c takes d4, c takes d4, and then I can simply capture on knight takes d4, where the bishop is going to be attacked on c4 and also on c1. So there is quite a few things that I can still do that could harm white, basically, if they are going to try and push the d4 pawn. But knight e5 is not a good answer to knight e2 in this case. Bishop goes all the way to e2, which acknowledges that probably white is seeing something. But making this type of move, it doesn't seem to be making much sense, to be honest. So we are going to develop the knight in this case, because what we want to do is to attack the e4 after we attack the queen with knight e5. So white is simply playing just one defensive move with d3. So queen c7 was a slight mistake, but it's not end of days. And now our development, should we play d5 here? Because on bishop f4, bishop d6, I think we want to take advantage of the queen being on f3, so we can hit it with the bishop g4 move. But I'm not convinced that the d5 is the best move here. But yeah, I don't feel like d5 is the good move to play here. Because if I play d5, he might have a move like bishop f4, and I don't necessarily want to play bishop d6. And also, if d5 takes, then bishop g5, then the d5 will be softer. But then I can still play bishop g4 myself. But I'm not convinced this is the best way to play. But we are going for it because yeah, white has wasted lots of time in the center playing this move bishop c4, bishop e2, and now I want to take advantage of this bishop g4 possibility. However, it doesn't look all that great from where I'm looking at this position. But also, you know, I think I'm sometimes over ambitious, so even here, you know, I'm always trying to get as much out of the position as possible, and sometimes it's just not possible to get more than just some good development or good space in the center. So that's what we are going to go with now. We're gonna take back with the pawn. Bishop f4 could be annoying, but we can play always queen d8. Because, I don't know, for some reason I like my dark square bishop. And I don't like so much the move like queen e3, so... If bishop g5 happens, bishop e7 is an easy answer. But take, queen takes d5. Oh, this is why I didn't want to play d5, because bishop g5 is actually a good answer to that. And oh, I think I understand now my motives. I wanted to play bishop g4 and bishop d6, but then queen h4 will happen, so... And if bishop g4, queen e3, then I'm slightly in trouble, so... Because he's going to take on f6, and if nothing else, he's going to get a doubled pawns He's gonna double my pawns. Bishop g4, queen e3 check, queen e5. He can in some cases take on g4 as well. So at this stage it feels like I will let go of the d5 pawn. It might not be the best decision, but the way I played, I make this queen look better than it actually is. So it's probably better to just win the pair of bishops. Let's see what's gonna happen next. So pair of bishops for a pawn, for the central pawn. I don't think it's enough compensation, but yeah, I could see the drawback of d5. I should have played just simply bishop e7 first and not to play d5 at all. But sometimes we have to pay for our sins or for our mistakes. And I also feel like if bishop takes f6, we are going to take back with the pawn. And then we are going to try and castle real quick. We're gonna hit the queen with bishop e6 and then castle. Queen e3 is actually a positive move for us, because if we were to lose the c pawn, that would be fine. But we can also push the pawn to d4 and not give up anything to white, basically. And if white captures on d4, we have a really nice move, knight takes d4 and threaten a queen. So if c d4, knight takes d4, we have a nice check on c2, winning the queen. So queen e3 I think is a little bit inaccurate from white, and now we should be back to close to winning. Depending obviously on their move. cd4 I feel is a blunder, because after knight takes d4, white would love to capture on f6 first, but it would be blunder if you take here. I give you the check, win the queen. We are playing against 1152 player called TNNS009 from Russia. I'll be surprised if they make this big blunder with dropping the c2, but well, we will see. You never know on this level what's going to happen next, so we won't assume. We will just castle if knight c2 is prevented. But this knight is now going to be a powerhouse, absolute powerhouse. And this queen, because the queen is being developed so early, that queen is not going to be a very good piece. So white at least sees that knight c2 is a big problem for them. So we can just simply castle, I believe. Which we're gonna do. I think just simply because of this backward pawn and our knight on d4, I think we should have advantage now that hopefully we won't let slip. But the d5 move that we played earlier was very inaccurate, I believe. So actually gave that queen on f3 purpose. So another like way you should think of playing is get your king castle before you start chasing other pieces, unless obviously that kind of chase works. Bishop to f4. That's a sensible move. But I'm sorry if I'm touching the mic. So bishop d6, trade the bishops now. Is that gonna be good for us, or is that not gonna be good for us? That's something that what would be the best square for our queen? I'm not sure where to play, where to go. Maybe just play queen d8. I'm in a situation where I want to keep my dark square bishop, because the more pieces I keep on the board, the better chances I might have, potentially. Also, I'm not going to be worried if white plays knight f3 takes d4, c takes d4, because that pawn will be controlling the very important square on c3. And my plan is to play knight to d5, hitting this bishop. So knight c3 happens. So our plan doesn't yet fully work. So are we going to develop our rook or our bishop? We can also play move like b5, b4, and then knight d5. If I play b5, bishop f3 is not a danger yet, but we also might need to think of developing our bishop. But I can't help it. I had a one-day break from posting, so my chess is not going to be as solid as it was a few days back, where I started to feel, that I'm starting to play slightly better. So knight f3 doesn't bother us. We literally would like to play the CD, and so we will start with hitting the knight. If knight takes d4, b takes c3 is a nice intermezzo because it threatens to win the queen. So even if you counterattack on the queen, it doesn't help because c takes d2 is with the check. So I feel once the knight moves, then we have a very useful move, knight d5. And knight goes back, which is surprise, surprise. And we are going to hit the bishop with knight d5. As I said, if the pawn goes here, it should be a kind of strong. So knight takes d4 happens. Knight takes d4 happens. And I haven't been doing much calculation this game or much thinking, to be honest. I think we have to capture back with the pawn. I feel like bishop f3 should be met with bishop g... Oh, no. Okay, bishop g3. So here I feel like we can start hitting the queen already. So we will do bishop g5. If moved like f4, it's going to give us a nice square on e3. So we're not going to be crying because of the f4. f4 also blocks his own bishop, so I feel like this could be a good move for us to face. But I feel like something went strange with the way we played this opening. Like we should have had clear advantage, but something isn't just right. Queen c2 is a slight surprise. I feel we need to hit the queen on the c file as soon as possible. Move like queen a5 is actually looking interesting, but white will just castle. And unfortunately we didn't develop the bishop yet. Well, we will try bishop f5 anyway. It doesn't look very safe stacking all the pieces on the same file, or in this case same rank. Okay. White manages to castle, which is slightly sad, but yeah, we will hit the queen for sure. So the rook would love to capture the white queen, so the white queen is going to play queen b3 or queen a4. Queen a4 it is, and I feel here we can possibly play move like queen to b6 or a5. But my most favorite move is queen to b6. Or queen to e7. Queen to e7, hitting the bishop. And then play knight to b6. Hitting the white queen, but the white queen still has plenty of squares to go to, so... I can as well maybe play rook to e8. But rook e8 runs into bishop f3 maybe. Queen e7, rook e8. Kind of like queen e7 move, even though I might be getting myself under fire. Queen is protecting both the a7 and the b4 pawn, at the same time attacking the e2 bishop. The problem I have is a couple of unprotected pieces on the 5th rank. But move like queen a5 would be a blunder for rook c5, counter-attacking the queen, and then I'll be able to capture on e2. Move like rook e1, I can probably double the rook and the queen. Move like bishop f3 is annoying, but on that I might have a move like knight to b6. I would love to plant the knight on square like c3 or e3, but more likely on e3. White will have to sort out the problem with development of his queen side, so these two pieces will be difficult to develop on these squares. I'm starting to feel like kicking the queen all the way to d1 might be actually very useful, as I then can play rook c1 and winning the queen for the rook and the bishop. So the bishop wants to capture my knight. I have now moved bishop takes d3, but that doesn't seem to work. If I play knight b6, I no longer have that option. So maybe I can play move knight to f4. Retain that option. Or maybe move like rook to d8. Bishop takes d3. We'll have only 2 minutes left, and the position isn't still clear to me on how to play this. So I'm gonna play knight b6. I'll just need to make a couple of quick moves here. Now if queen a5, rook c5 is no longer possible. So if queen b3, we can play bishop e6. I need to gain some time on the clock before anything else. The queen is going all the way to d1. Now rook c1 is not necessarily trapping the queen. I can play rook c5 maybe. Knight d2 is possible now. His bishops aren't so bad, so I'll play rook c1 and see what happens. I think queen e2 would be like the best move. Yeah, and as much as I don't like it, I move my rook back again. So right now I should be slightly better, but I don't see any punch in the position. But these two bishops are kind of strong as well. So what I want to do now is to pin the knight. That was my idea when I maneuvered all these pieces around. That could also help me to win the pawn on b2. So I think knight d2 was not the most accurate move that you could play here. My question is, do I double up the rooks on the c file? feels like that's what I want to. That's exactly what I want to do. I will double stack the rooks on c-file. As long as the pin is there, I should be fine. White plays b3. Now, if the b3 is played, then I'm going to try and jump away with my queen. But queen f6, I think knight to e4 is possible. So I need to play my queen somewhere else. Queen c5 also doesn't work. I'll try and move knight d5. Because white will feel like they need to trade the bishop and then the queen, and that could give me a slight advantage again in this position. The only issue is that maybe knight c4 could be a problem there. So we're trading the queens. The problem is I have only 1 minute and 12 seconds, so we now need to make some quick moves. Knight f1 happens. And again, I feel this is not the best. This is not the best use of squares for white. However, I think I gave just a nice move, bishop e5, attacking the dark square pawns. So on d4, h4 happens. We're going to go back. We want to stay on this diagonal as long as possible. The next move, I would ideally like to play move f6, so this bishop cannot go on to e5. Unfortunately, it's just a blitz game now. What I would also like to do is to activate my rook. Knight to h2 is fine. He would like to go to g4. So maybe I feel like I'll stop that move with f5. And at the same time, I'm threatening to trap the dark square bishop. I wish there was some move like bishop e3, but I don't see it working just yet. So f3 happens, and I think this is a good move for us because we can check. King h1, sensible. And we are going to try and double up. So we'll try and move rook b2. Knight to f1 is a sensible move again. We can give ourselves pass protected pawn with the move like f4. but we gonna get it anyway. So what we gonna do is just double stack. We have still 59 seconds. 10 seconds is an increment. It is getting a little bit heated, but it's just fine. White is surprisingly also low on time. So knight takes e3 totally makes sense. We take. I would expect something like bishop f4, but that doesn't happen. So we're going to trade the rook if we can. We are winning also the b3 pawn. And the e2 pawn is going to be the pawn that's probably going to win us the game. So bishop f4, we need to push the pawn. Rook e1 is not going to capture the pawn, so we're going to take here. King g1 is a fine move. Well, we play bishop d1, and the b pawn is just simply going to start marching. Black's counterattack might be in a d pawn, but we are just going to simply play rook a5 and stop that pawn from marching further. So we start with the b3. Now again with 10 seconds increment, even if we are playing, you know, two moves on both sides, we are much better on time eventually. So it's not a big issue. So bishop e5 happens, which we are going to definitely play b2. We're gonna grab the bishop. And now the last step will be to bring our king forward. So maybe we can start pushing another pawn, because that one is also unstoppable. King goes here, we just check. The bishop is protecting our rook at the moment, so there's no issue. Yes, white goes here, but now the pawn is protecting our rook. So there's still no tactics for white. White would love to push this pawn forward, but again we can just simply march towards that pawn, stop it manually. So now we're stopping it. So white would definitely like to stay in contact with our rook. So we are going to make sure that, you know, some rook d1 would not work, but rook takes e2 may have worked. So, but it doesn't matter. It's too many pawns. We are winning no matter what. Rook g1, nice move. So we have a move like rook e3, for example. So the rook has to go back to e1. We start pushing another p. Okay. So, yeah, we can We can give the rook away, but do we want to give the rook away? It's not needed. We can simply keep the king cut out and just play a2 and so on. We need to watch for potential zugzwang, but at the moment I don't see how can white achieve that. All his pawns are blocked, but he still has this move and the move back, and then he will have this and this move as well. So sacrificing for a queen, I don't think it's gonna work. Especially sacrificing for this bishop, we are putting a queen on the board with check, so... And I think we are going to be promoting into a rook that should win the game easily too. And we won on time, but it's more than obvious that we won on position too. My last idea was to place a rook here eventually and checkmate this way. So yes, I don't think I'm too proud of this game, and I would still count it as Khan Sicilian, given, you know, I didn't get to play a6 move, but even though it was more of a Boden Sicilian, and I really played badly even in the opening, I shouldn't have played Queen c7. I think, yeah, this was okay. And we are 3-all with between Sicilian and Phillidor, which you can also say, you know, that's more like the pawn structure is Phillidor, but the opening could be taken as modern or, you know, sort of different style of opening as well against d4 and c4. So this is our game for now. I hope the sound is a lot better now. I will be checking the video later on, listening to it, and see if there's need to be some improvement to the sound itself. So I hope you enjoyed the game, and I will see you in the next video.